John, with a lot of talk about the Cox, Kerr, Napnui Kerr, clearance work, the guys, because it's had so much publicity, you do things differently this week, knowing that blind Freddie would not be trying to work out some way of
no, I'd be disappointed if Burnsy hasn't thought about that. I'm sure he has, and I think Matt Priddis is pretty happy with all the attention on Carey. No one's noticed his 450 clearances in the last 12 months.
How does that? How important is that to get that sort of understanding and that sort of work happening between those guys with Shuey as well?
Yeah, obviously with Shuey and Scott Selwood and the other young midfielders that we've got that will go through there, Gaff and Stevens and Swift and these guys, that takes a little bit of experience for them to know how to time their run and how to read the tap and do all that. They know the taps, they know the positions and what their roles are at stoppages, but they don't. They haven't had as much practice as what Daniel has, and the other side of it is that Daniel is in the elite in the competition at that, so he's a great teacher for them. As is Matt Priddis. They both do it differently, but both very, very good at clearances.
Why do you think someone like Matt Priddis goes so under the radar?
Well, he doesn't really in terms of the AFL teams. Teams are aware. He got enormous treatment on the weekend by the Adelaide players, enormous focus, and that's probably why Kerry was happy. Now this week it might be the opposite, and that's great for us in terms of building two elite clearance players, and we believe down the track we'll have 4 or 5.
Halfway mark of the season, John, how would you rate how you've gone so far?
I think we're satisfied with the improvement we've shown to date, with a strong focus of how much more we need to show.
So you're not changing the goals, being halfway through and done a bit better than on 40?
Well, the goals are pretty similar to what they stay pretty much the same, which is continue to show improvement in those areas. So, we've got to make sure we maintain the intensity we've played with so far and still work on some areas we want to get better at. No, I never doubted the plan. The timing is the hard thing, as it's very hard to be able to accurately say when things will turn around and when things will become better. And you can never pick. You always have a few close games every year. You look at Geelong this year; they've won all their close games. There's other years where you lose more of those than you win, and your win-loss record looks a lot different. So you can't really predict that side of things, number of wins and how quickly they come. But the performance of the team, you can have a fair idea about.
You've used a lot of young guys so far. Is there a chance of one or two of them having a rest now we're halfway through?
Well, we've got a bye in 2 weeks, so we take that into account. If there were guys that were looking like either they were accumulating too much soreness, then we would rest them. But they're all tracking pretty well. But it is something we take into account, and with the bye on the horizon, we're aware of that, but we're monitoring all the younger players.
Internally, can you compare the current midfield to, say, 2004 when you had Cousins and experienced player, probably similar to Kerr at this stage? Can you compare the two midfields and where they're at?
It's probably a bit too hard at the moment. But suffice to say, we're pleased with what we've got coming through in that area. We haven't seen much of Gaff this year yet. He's had some setbacks in the last few weeks that have interrupted his football, but he is going to be an elite midfielder. And Kobe Stevens and Tom Swift have both had outstanding waffle seasons to date. So add those guys to the ones who have had some opportunities this year, and we believe we'll build a really good midfield.
Where do you see Lacroix and how you use him moving forward? Does he still sort of just switch between the midfield and the forward line?
Yeah, at the moment we're just getting a good feel for what the team needs. I think we could commit Mark to being a full-time midfielder or a full-time forward, depending on what best is going to make our team best. And So we're lucky that we've got a player we can look at using in either of those ways. At the moment, we're happy to give him some time through the midfield and a fair bit of time forward.
How do you rate his clearance work? He had a couple of very decisive breakaways as well.
Yeah, he did. And for someone who hasn't done a lot of work in that area, I think he shows the potential he's got to be an elite player through there.
Is there a fear that if you're moving more into the midfield that he loses that polish down forward, or do you think you always have that?
Yeah, I've always seen that even when he was out for his 4 or 5 games this year, we still managed to find scoring avenues. So I think you can always do that. But in saying that, having LeCras in the forward line does give the opposition bigger headaches in that area.
Does transforming Nikoski into that sort of clever forward, obviously with quite Lecker's class, but he's the sort of clever forward down there. Does that really sort of help you, allow you to put Lecker up? I
think that has helped in that Mark has played that role really well. We've got other players on our list that we thought would be able to play that position well, but Mark grabbed the opportunity ahead of them in the pre-season and has deserved to stay in the side. So we were always going to have a player of that type in that role.
If Lecker goes to the midfield, John, you need probably a crumbing forward. How have you thought Broome and Whedon and Oakley Nichols and these guys have gone?
Well, Broome has kept kicking goals. He's consistently kicked goals. He's up over 20 for the year so far. And Jerrick's kicked goals and multiple goals in numerous games and has probably been the most consistent out of all the small and medium forwards. So, we're really excited with what both those boys are showing. And they're both... Lewis has got a long way to go to reach his full potential. He's probably 2 or 3 years off reaching his full potential, but he's shown very quickly that he can contribute well at senior level in the waffle. And Jerrick as well has stepped up to become a very good player for Claremont this year. So both of them have bright futures.
What about someone like Ashton Ham, sort of a few games last year, is a high half forward and probably hasn't had as many games this year as he would have liked?
As he would have liked, yeah. We haven't been forced to play him. He missed out. He played round 1. We weren't disappointed with his game, but we brought Kerr back in. Kerr and Nat Nui came into the second round, so someone had to miss out. And Nikoski, as I said, had performed at the level to say he stayed in. And Ashton's had to wait for the next opportunity. He's just come back from suspension. He's in very, very good form and could easily come into the side whenever we need him, and we'd be happy with that.
Given how well the team is at the halfway point of the season, do you use finals as a bit of a carrot for the players and a bit of extra?
Well, our players are the ones who, in the pre-season, said they were focused on finals football and believing that it was a possibility. So I don't have to refocus them at all. They've had that all the way along. That's just where it's at.
For you now, do you dare to dream finals?
No, I'm dreaming 8 wins at the moment.
What about top 4, John? They're actually starting to talk of West Coast as a top 4 prospect, and when you look at the draw, if there is going to be a change to the top 4, you're probably the most likely team to slip in there.
Well, it's nice to at least have people looking at the team and considering that that's a possibility for us. That's a long way from what they considered a possibility 8 weeks ago, or maybe 10 weeks ago. I haven't had a look at everyone's draw. I don't go into it in that much detail, but suffice to say, if those top 4 teams that are currently there are pretty good teams, and we'd be going pretty well if we could knock one of them out.
Just on Port season, what do you know of that?
They obviously wouldn't be that pleased with where they're at, but they have got a focus now of working out what team they want to go forward with. So they're very competitive. They were stick with Carlton, right up till 3/4 time. So we're well and truly aware of how good they can be over periods of the game, and we'll have our same focus as we've tried to have all year.
Are they one of the more unpredictable teams, given that they can have good quarters and then just fall?
Not so much unpredictable. You plan for what you know they can bring, so we'll be ready for that.
What do you tell your players before a game like this when their struggles have been pretty well documented and there may be a danger of a bit of a letdown?
Yeah, we had a similar focus last week, playing Adelaide. and there was a lot of focus on the intensity that Adelaide thought they needed to bring to that game. So this week's not too much different in that our focus last week was, regardless of what the opposition bring, for us to keep growing as a team, it's to play with the same intensity, and that's the next step now for the players, is to back up after a good away win and show the same intensity.